Hello and welcome back to my podcast, the Cedric Podcast, with your host, Cedric Cass. Um, Today, I wanted to talk about the social justice issue of gerrymandering. I just had an interview a few days ago with this amazing woman, Simone Leeper. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that name. And I just, th- this is just something that I've always kind of wanted to do, and I'm so happy that I'm able to do it now. Anyway, first I want to get started on a bit of background of Simone Leeper. Kind of reading off her campaign legal page, it says that she litigates a wide range of redistricting cases, challenges gerrymanders, and advocating for election systems that guarantee all voters have an equal opportunity to influence our democracy. So she's someone who's very upfront with this problem, which made her insight just incredibly interesting, especially for how to help combat gerrymandering. So first off, gerrymandering is a separation of voting districts in order to give the party in power right now, or the party that makes those maps, it's to give them more seats in state, local, or even national, like we saw a few months ago with Texas doing a mid census redistricting. It's to give these minorities or just people who vote differently. It's kind of silencing them while over representing the people who align with the party in power. If you get what I mean. Now, the who is being affected is pretty much everyone. It's every American who participates in any kind of system, the voting system in America. Um, and it's just due to the fact that these people want people, and these people who make the maps are the people who want to stay in power. Now, someone like Simone Leeper uh, has tried to fight gerrymandering, mainly because, as she describes, there are two different types of gerrymandering. There's partisan gerrymandering, which is when you divide by party lines, and there's racial gerrymandering, which is when you divide or exclude or include a minority in something in order to further persecute them. Okay, and so she tries to fight both, mainly racial gerrymandering because that is illegal, but partisan gerrymandering, unfortunately, is not. And that is something that she is working towards as a lawyer to get, working banned. Now, with the conversation I kind of had with her, she was she was very joyful and very happy to talk about this. One of sort of the key themes that I kind of took away from this was to I'm sorry, I don't have my papers in order. But I'm sorry. One of the things that I think that at least one of the themes or takeaways that I sort of got from there was the just why people should fight gerrymandering. Like later on in the interview, I talk about why should the voters who their party is in power, why should they vote for them? And one of the first things she says is that, well, the other shoe will drop. um, when we have these lines, it only puts smaller sect of people in power, and that means it's not true democracy. Gerrymandering is the prohibition or just a straight up obstacle for democracy, which is why it needs to be taken down because it means that these people's voices just aren't being heard. And really, and it may overrepresent someone else's voices while underrepresenting other people's, like minorities, as we talked about. Um, One of the other things that I found really interesting about what you said was, sorry, let me go get it really quickly. Was how when I asked her what can you do, and I'll circle back to this later. But one of the things I thought was interesting when I asked, like, hey, what can you do as a person to help address this issue, especially since this feels so large that it's hard to do anything too much maybe at the local level. But she talked about how actually a lot of gerrymandering happens at the local level. In fact, that's where it's most prevalent, which I found fascinating. So something that she said though was, um, Sorry. But one of the things that she said is that um, g- how when an initiative group comes around to put in place a true independent redistricting commission, in order to do that, to just vote, obviously, and I think that it's just a vote to for people to that ensure voting fair voting districts. I'm sorry, but one of the other things she said though was just to attend these to attend these community of these hearings, these public hearings whenever there's a new whenever they're redistricting again. It's just to be there at the local level saying, hey, I don't want this, or I want this, in this case gerrymandering, but I want this, and so this is what I want from the community that I'm a part of. I mean, as a quote, hey, she said, like, just to go to these hearings and say, hey, I'm a part of this, community of interest should be kept together. I want to be represented, and it matters to me. And then later on, she says how going and testifying to these smaller hearings at the local level, because it happens much greater to a greater effect at the local level, can make a really big difference. Um, Now going back to some of the research that I did. Sorry, it might take me a little bit here. Going back to some of the research I did. From Richards, Meredith, Gerrymandering Equal Opportunity, from 2017 in JSTOR. She says on page 65 to 67 that the gerrymandering of educational boundaries generally foster inequalities in access to educational opportunities and worsens the severe levels of racial segregation in public school. Another point from Eric J. Ergstrom in Gerrymandering the Future of American Politics, Partisan Gerrymandering and the Construction of American Democracy. He says how research lays much of the blame for declining competitive at the feet of redistricting. So basically, overall, those quotes are essentially saying that gerrymandering will, I mean, obviously, educational equality, like the first one said, but more of how it means that people's voices will be heard less due to competitiveness and it just means people's voices will be heard less with gerrymandering. That's something that Simone talked about up front. She's someone who represents those people whose voices are not heard, being a lawyer who fights against racial and partisan gerrymandering. Those kind of go hand in hand. I really liked how she talked about um, representing these people, actually representing people who don't have a voice and is able to give them a voice. I thought that was pretty amazing and definitely coincided with the research I did about these people, how gerrymandering sort of strips voices away, either due to, the voting opportunities that they have, the people that they vote on, or just straight up not having as much resources as the people who as much resources as other people who maybe align, quote unquote, with the party. And now she obviously wanted to do a lot more things through law because she is a lawyer, but overall, I think she was pretty chill and just was able to understand, and was able to push for gerrymandering for all. She didn't just want to get the people whose voice were taken. Now she wanted to do it because it helps everyone. It helps everyone's voices being heard. Because when only a handful of people are powerful, everyone loses. Now I want to kind of move on to a bit of a personal reflection here. One of the main that I came from this, at least according to CSD, is the preferable options for the poor and vulnerable. Due to the fact that, especially what Simone she's doing, she's giving these people a voice. She's giving the people who don't necessarily have a voice in the voting system or just in elections in general, and she's giving them a voice by fighting against partisan and racial gerrymandering. And uh, and so that's one of the things I see at most in her, at the very least. Now, I have two things from Reverend Navarum that I think speak to it. That the government shouldn't overstep family. So the government should not uh, marginalize or I mean, I know it's talking about family, but I think it just means citizens in general. It should not do anything that that puts its citizens in a worse place actively. It should not actively do that, which is what gerrymandering does, unfortunately. And another one is how the present and future. I believe this is yes, this is Reverend Navarum. Sorry, 7. So Reverend Navarum 7. I was reading on, but the one about government overstepping family. That one is 14. My bad. So 14 then 7. President and future should take priority over the state. Yes. So this is again going back to gerrymandering that the state should not be trying to preserve itself. It should just trying to be preserving. It should just be trying to address the needs of its citizens. Okay, it kind of 14 and 7 sort of go hand in hand, and the government should not be worried about its own pers- prevent. I'm sorry, guys, but like presence or preservance. But it should not be concerned about itself. It should just be concerned about its constituents. I'm sorry. Um, One of the beatitudes that I think would work that kind of coincide is persuasively engage with the empathy of no, I'm so sorry. No, a beatitude that I think works best here is that blessed are those who are persecuted for their righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Um, which I think coincides really well with the people who not only, well, we all live under gerrymandered districts, but especially ones that clearly their voices are sort of being shunned because they think differently, and because of that, their voices must be heard um, less, unfortunately, which I think coincides with that beatitude very well. Um, and I mean, what is at stake is really now, overall, gerrymandering is just a threat to American democracy. That plain and simple. It just is, no matter what. They talked about Texas doing it, but then we talked about California. Obviously, one of the main things uh, is to put in more roadblocks for gerrymandering. Like California has a citizens approval system of some sort, so they have to vote on whether this map is appropriate. But obviously, there's others like just straight up banning partisan gerrymandering, which is not banned. Racial gerrymandering is banned, but partisan gerrymandering is not, and that's something we should work towards to ban. But but I need to readjust here, folks. You need to take a sip of water. But but what is at stake here is just American democracy as a whole, which is why it's important because people's voices aren't being heard, which means we can't ever truly achieve the democracy that we want, or just a truly representative democracy, unless we get rid of partisan gerrymandering. And if this doesn't be true, then we just are more hardlined in our beliefs, and it means that our voting, going back to the evidence, going back to the quote from, sorry, I need to pull it back up again, guys, but going back to the quote from Eric J. Eggstorm, research found that lays much of the blame for declining competitiveness at the feet of redistricting. So it just means that we have a lot. Welcome back to this from this ad break. I'm sorry. I have to put those in. I gotta make money somehow. But going back to what I said about the quote I just said, it just it's it's worse for American democracy because it brings about worst candidates because it means that we are sort of we only vote on the ones that are more radicalized. If you get what I mean, gerrymandering will only push us to vote for more radicalized people, which means that the best representatives are not going to be the ones in Congress because they're overrepresentative of radical sect of the population rather than what everyone else is, which is, somewhere in the middle. Um, and what happens if nothing is done is just we lose this democracy. Plain and simple. Only a handful of people truly get power, and everyone else just loses their vote, their most powerful thing that they could have. Um, Now going back to what Simone talked about what you can do, something that we can do is vote on it, especially local elections. She really emphasized voting on local elections because that is where gerrymandering, as I said, takes the most hit. So voting on these local elections, going out there and having your voice heard. That would be, a charity thing to do. While maybe more justice sided is, well, I'm focusing more on charity. I'm sorry. But, charity, do that. And then also attend those hearings when they do the redistricting. Like, go and have your voice heard in these communities. It all starts at the local level. That's something she really emphasized. It all starts at the local level. Okay. Now the last one is going to be justice, and that's going to be obviously much harder for us, but it's to just ban partisan gerrymandering. Racial gerrymandering is already banned, but partisan is not, and that one arguably uses a lot of racial gerrymandering. So, a lot of the Supreme Court cases, it's the other side's arguing racial gerrymandering, but the other side's arguing partisan gerrymandering. We should just ban partisan gerrymandering in general. Okay, once we straight up ban gerrymandering as a whole, can we truly ever, you know, move on from this and become a better democracy because of it? That is the end goal. That's the justice that we need in order to end this. Anyway, guys, I'm sorry for the break here, but I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast for today. I thought it was very insightful, obviously, but I don't have much else to say. If I'm being honest, leave a comment and subscribe if you want to, and then leave a comment if you feel the need to leave a comment in case you want to add any information that maybe I left off. Maybe you had another talk with Simone, and you can also watch the interview yourself on YouTube. It's for free, obviously. Same with this podcast at Cedric Cast YouTube channel. Anyway, guys, I need to get ready for school. So Cedric out.